Hello and welcome to State of the Economy, a show that connects you with key policymakers and thinkers. Today we have with us Dr. Arun Maira, Member Planning Commission, whose broad mandate is to facilitate policies relating to industrialization, a subject which is being hotly debated these days, especially in the backdrop of manufacturing growth virtually stalling in the fourth quarter of 2011-12. Welcome to our show, Mr. Maira. I would start with the broader issue of why is manufacturing in India stalling or appears to be slowing so dramatically in a premature fashion. What is according to you, is the main problem with policy today? And if so, what sort of new institutional structures do we need to implement policies in a much more robust manner?
You know, Venu, there are two sets of challenges that we have to address if you want manufacturing to grow. One of them is to do with the broader policy management and the growth of the country. To explain that, if I might tell you that in 2005, several people in the country from different fields got together, and the World Economic Forum had brought us together to make a picture, a set of scenarios of what India could be like in the next 10 or 15 years after that, from 2005 till about 2020, because business people elsewhere were curious about whether the BRICS projections for China and Russia and Brazil and India could indeed come about. Because, you know, economists get many projections wrong. You will find that growth, which this was 2005, was getting to 9%. It was forecasted that it could come to 9 or 10% for a little while only, would drop to 8%, and then if something was not done, which
this was already forecast?
Oh yes, it would come down to 6%.
Could you tell us in a nutshell what are the systemic forces which you had anticipated or which this conference had anticipated would actually slow growth unless we took some steps?
That's right. There were two sets of forces. One of them, if I can say very broadly, was ideological. There was this whole thrust since the early 1990s that you leave it to the market, let private enterprise grow
or the old
economy.
Political institutions?
No, but leave it to the market one side. Yes, on the other side, you're right.
Ideologically,
Yes, ideologically, leave it to that. On the other side, yes, we had the fear of government, and we don't want government anymore. But we have
because we had faced excessive government.
Excessive government. And you see, like the US found when they went on its financial sector, leaving it too much to the private side, you do need regulation, which means you need some public intervention in the market.
These two forces.
We said yes, because we are not developing the good regulations of the private energies, there will be distortions. Some people will become extremely wealthy by cockeyed ways, and there will be resentment. There will be resentment that this is not, fair to do that. The other was that the processes of decision making within the country were going to get more and more complicated. How? One was, like I mentioned, the private sector and the public sector must cooperate in making policies without one capturing the system.
And the state enhancing its capacity to deliver.
To work in a collaborative fashion rather than in authoritative fashion, controlling industry. We also said that the NGO sector, the civil sector, would be growing very large because of communications that are growing and the desire to have human rights and democracy all over the world. And we haven't built the institutions to include them in the decision making. And so if you don't do this, decision making in the country will begin to stall. And there was a scenario that we put out of buffaloes wallowing. That it will be a situation possibly where you'll have a lot of big people, members of a coalition or chief ministers along with the center, who will all be just arguing and not able to move forward. And meanwhile, the country is waiting for development and decisions that will make things grow. So what it pointed to was this, that we've got to strengthen, change and improve the structures for collaborative decision making. And we had, authoritative structures.
So you would need new institutions.
New institutions.
To do collaborative decision making, right?
So, collaborative planning, collaborative decision making.
But it's very interesting, Mr. Maira, you coming back to the first set of observations that you made, do you believe that lack of regulation, as we freed the markets, lack of regulation has indeed made fewer people much richer, and then not address the concerns of the larger masses. Has that happened in your view?
Well, that's
Going by civil society reaction, response, etc. Political.
That is one. But just to think about it, that it wasn't the fashion until the late 1990s, I guess, to start celebrating the amount of wealth or the sizes of houses and the yachts and all that people had. We were a society where we sort of moderate in this. And then that began to happen, and the more is the celebration of it.
Celebration of it.
Yes. It's okay to have it, but the celebration of it, which then brought out the stark contrast. So then when you see the situation that there is more communication, there's more information, there's a sense that things should be fair, everyone should have an equal opportunity.
So this has in some ways created some sort of backlash.
It would result, as we pointed out, there would be a backlash against the way we were developing the economy. It would create a logjam in decision making, which is what I pointed to, the buffaloes wallowing together. And we are experiencing it. And as we talked about the last 2 or 3 years, to say, there's a policy paralysis. What is it due to? You can see that, whereas Mamata Banerjee, she's trying to represent a point of view very loudly. And before that, we had the communists trying to do the same. So, they also, we were saying they're stalling the decisions. But there's an underlying issue to be addressed
here. So, you're saying that this policy paralysis is a result of a lack of ability to take collaborative decision in society?
Yes, include many perspectives. After all, the people who believe that there should be faster inclusion by giving handouts, you can't throw them out of this place. They are around here. So their point of view has to be considered. At the same time, people like us would say, look, that is unsustainable. So our point of view has to be considered. But we seem to be talking different languages altogether. We dismiss them as socialists. They dismiss us as neoliberal capitalists. We got to talk together. We are all in it together. So this was what I'm mentioning, rather than making it an ideological dispute, it's really understanding the forces that are shaping us and what are the desires of different sections.
And find some middle ground.
Middle ground, exactly.
A third way, as it were.
It should be a third way. A middle ground sounds like half and half. It's a new way in which they all see themselves included. And in those scenarios then that we produced with the World Economic Forum, we had found the third way. And the third way was a very much entrepreneurial development way, local governance and management way, a decentralized management way with a collaboration.
And a more social ownership of capital, as it were, is it?
No, there could be private enterprise. We want more private enterprise, more small entrepreneurs and big entrepreneurs. But they should be guided by, as I say, a guiding philosophy, a set of regulations, so that they are not destroying the system.
This is very interesting. We'll take this further, but after a small break. Please don't go away and keep watching Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We were having a very interesting conversation with Mr. Arun Maira, Member Planning Commission. Mr. Maira, you very rightly said there is a certain inability to take collaborative decisions in our society at the political level, maybe at the civil society level, which is what is stalling decision making, which is what is being described as policy paralysis by some, and which is what is probably slowing growth. How do you deal with this?
When we started our development after independence, we had a very powerful, well-respected party called the Congress Party, which ruled in almost all the states, and it was no need for a coalition at the center, and this went on for quite a while. So there was, like the Chinese have one party, and so we had a situation where, a big leader of the Congress Party could be commanding action in all parts of the country. And the Planning Commission was set up at the same time.
It had a different role at that time, Planning Commission.
Well, it was set up by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to say, well, I want a set of experts who I choose. It's like the President of the United States, I choose. They don't have to be elected people. In the parliamentary side, he had to have a cabinet of elected people. So they would be there because they know the system and they can get things done there, but they may not be the experts in the various things that we need to do. So he created two structures, and he's the chairman of both the structures. So in that, it was like it was a staff advising a very strong chief executive. Good ideas, and he could sort of impose these ideas on the various states. Now, what has changed? What has changed? One more thing to mention. At that time, The state had a large, the center had a large amount of the resources. The private sector was extremely small, and our states were also not that grown up, many of them. So it also had the funds to say, we shall do this, and I give you the money, and it shall be done. What has changed is, one is, we don't have a strong party ruling in all the states, right?
Plus a lot of decentralization already happened.
Exactly. Political decentralization has happened. Yeah. Coalitions is going to be here for a while and has been here for a while. In terms of money, many states have started to become pretty independent, and they raise.
Greater fiscal decentralization has happened.
And we have been asking, that's a good thing, because we need, in a diverse country like ours, so large, we must have devolution. So the finance commissions have also been going
going in that direction.
And the private sector has grown very large.
Very large.
Yeah, very large.
So,
they don't need the government
things
money.
have dramatically changed.
The structure of the system has changed.
Yeah.
And we had an old structure for which we had a set of processes for planning and decision making. Yeah. Those processes of planning and decision making haven't changed, but the structure of the system has changed. So we're finding this dissonance. So you find the state saying to the center, don't tell us what to do. We are big enough, we are independent, let us determine
what
we're
doing. So how are you coping with it?
That's right.
Give us some examples. Say Narendra Modi comes here and says, I want to do this. So or Nitish Kumar comes here and says, I want to do this way. So how does Planning Commission deal with it?
Let me deal with two subjects that I deal with. One is industrialization, where we need to have a very different approach to grow industry all over the country. The second is the one I just mentioned, is about the way we plan things in this country. Yeah? We can't use a centralized planning model and tell the states what to do. So many who are not so good have been saying in the last year to us that we like to improve the way we manage, they manage in the states. So can you help us, telling me from the center and Montek, help us to set up a planning system in the state which will improve the performance of the states. So we know that the states are independent of us and of each other. They are different, and so they're doing things in different ways, some much better, some less. So here's an opportunity for the states to learn from each other. And our role from the center must be to enable each state to learn and to learn from each other also.
And to build an alternative system of implementation as it
Yeah,
were.
so we got some metaphors here. We've developed, and I'll come back to the states, metaphors for where India is now and where it needs to go. A metaphor is that we are muddling along. We're muddling along. We've got a flotilla of states and different actors, private sector, and in the coalition, different people, and they're banging against each other. It's sort of muddling along. Muddling along. Now, if we keep muddling along, because the social forces in the country are getting impatient, now we can result in a complete stalling of progress, and we're finding the decline in the numbers. You can see this happening. What's the alternative? If the flotilla learns to move like a flotilla, means that there is some signals given from some radar ship to the other, this is what we anticipate in terms of stormy seas and so on. All you captains, adjust your directions and don't bang against each other, and let's all go in that fashion. So the center should be able to do this. Should be able to provide a radar and a direction which people want to go towards, and say, fine, that's good for me too, and I shall go there. And exchanging of information amongst them, as I said. We shouldn't bang against each other, rather we should learn. What are you encountering? How are you going forward? I could learn also and move my ship forward too. We will be calling in about 2 months' time, actually in a few weeks' time, a meeting of the people who do the planning in the states or want to improve the planning in the states with us. We are going to ask at that time them to confirm the way we are changing our planning to be like the navigator.
So tell me, which are some of the good states from which you are also learning, stronger states in the way they are implementing policies?
They got different styles, and it's very interesting. And Mr. Modi and the Gujarat has a
different
its own
style.
style.
Some of the other chief ministers?
I'll mention some other. Shivraj Chauhan. I mean, he's a different sort of person, but he's getting his things organized and going forth. In Tamil Nadu, the chief ministers have changed, but they've got a planning setup with a very strong planning board and a system, which is an ongoing institution, which is a good idea, because even if your chief ministers change or parties change, the direction
there is a certain continuity,
which is why you see the results. The social indicators of Tamil Nadu have been improving very rapidly.
What about Kerala?
Good point. Now, Kerala has on the ground, it's one of our demonstrations, because they built local planning long back. The strength of local institutions is very strong. So regardless of who is up there, they get things done. They're taking local decisions and getting things done.
So some states have very strong local institutions.
But that's a direction for everybody to go.
Everybody to go to.
Our own direction from the center is precisely this. We want the states to be strong, and we are encouraging the states. You get your cities administration strong, get the panchayats.
Municipal.
Exactly. if we are strong at the bottom, it doesn't matter who's wallowing on the top, right? We will progress as a country. And getting strong at the bottom means two good things. When people feel they are in charge, and second is your solutions are suiting to the requirements locally. So we're more efficient in the use of resources. Right now, if you plan things centrally and expect the same idea to work everywhere, you get a wastage because it's not adapted. When Rajiv Gandhi said, and thereafter Rahul, that only 15% is the outcome out of the 100%, it wasn't that 85% is corruption.
I know.
It's just that it's
wasteful administrative.
It's not the right solution.
Yeah, well, we will carry this discussion forward, but after a small break, please don't go away and keep watching Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. Arun Maira, Member Planning Commission. Mr. Maira, we ended the previous segment with the conclusion that the flotilla, there has to be coordination between center and states and a certain common sense of purpose to be able to move forward, right? And we need a collaborative mechanism. Now, can you explain to me with examples on how this collaborative mechanism can work to implement some of the reforms which are needed to push growth and benefit both the center and states at the same time? Some urgent reforms that we need today.
We need very urgent reforms to help manufacturing to grow. And to help manufacturing to grow, we need reforms in a variety of things. We need reforms in the way human resources are being managed in this country, whole one set. We do need reforms in the way business regulations are being implemented in the states, right? So there's and land acquisition,
and
environmental issues.
Like goods and services tax, complete transformation of tax structures, which will benefit both states and center.
Well, some things which are to do with the center vis-a-vis the states. There's some things, like I said about the labor regulations, it could be within the state itself.
So in your conversations with various state chief ministers who visit Planning Commission, do you get the feeling that they appreciate the need for a common understanding on these issues, to be on the same page on all these issues?
Yeah. They would like to be as equal partners, actually, that we are together independent captains of our ships. Don't talk down to us. And let's collaboratively work out what's good for all of us, for me as well as for the whole system. So that tone has to change, which I go back to what I said.
Is it changing or has it changed?
It is changing. And we from the Planning Commission have to change most of all, perhaps. Because we were like this top people giving money to people and telling them what to do and evaluating them. It won't work now, right?
So this cultural change is happening.
It is happening. It is happening. Now, it's not happening fast enough, right? And I said, if we made those scenarios in 2005, if we started deliberately making those changes then, today in 2012, 7 years later, we wouldn't be arguing about the need to do this. If we'd be on the way doing it. So we have to now start implementing the improvement of the structures of the system and collaborative decision making in this system. So in the manufacturing arena, we have located that many things have to be improved by different set of stakeholders together. Unions with the industry to talk about how to get, and government to get the labor regulation and administration right. Issues to do with land or with farmers.
Land laws, for instance, something very basic.
Exactly. So there are the state, then the stakeholders of the states, and they're different in different states. Some are tribal stakeholders. Around here in Haryana, it's farmers, different stakeholders. So the institutional solutions will not be exactly the same everywhere. And they have to be therefore worked out by the local stakeholders together. Now, therefore, the ability to get local stakeholders together to speedily come to consensus that will stick with them is required. This is a capability India needs everywhere. So this is, we are talking it like it's a way of mass dialogue, or right? It's a weapon of mass destruction, but a way of mass dialogue, which we need to proliferate.
Can I take one example here to illustrate what you're saying, or to get an understanding of how what you're saying works vis-a-vis this example? We have a land acquisition draft bill, right? It's highly contentious. Now, we need at least some core common practice, legal practice at the center and in all the states, in order that land is freed for industrial use. But I find that many states are opposing even the simple fact that the government should at least intervene to acquire or help private sector acquire even small bits like 5% of the total land being acquired for contiguity purposes. Now, how do you deal with this problem? For instance, West Bengal, I remember you once made a statement that Tatas could have done better in West Bengal. When Jindals could get land, why couldn't Tatas? I remember you had made a statement. Yes. Now, how do you get around this problem?
See, original land acquisition law that we had by the British here, it had once a very sensible thing. It said the state can acquire land for a public purpose. Now, right now industry is saying we are also a public purpose.
Yes, some activities like infrastructure or township development. Yeah.
If I build a post office or a hospital, which people are using themselves, or a railway station, so they can see it's a public purpose, I can also be using it and so on. Now we've got another extreme. There are hotels, 5-star hotels in this country, who have been coming to us and saying, you know, after all, we are also getting foreign exchange, people come and visit us. So, you know, we should be also given land, public purpose.
Would that be public purpose according to you?
Not to me, because I say, look, all the people around are going to say, what benefit did I get? I was here with the land, you threw me out. Only fancy people come here now, and mera kya ho gaya? So therefore it comes back to when you say industry, I know that industry creates jobs and then produces goods which we can export, but that's, you know, remote from the person there. So
but that's not good enough to be described as public purpose.
Unless the people locally accept it.
Yeah.
That is why we have.
So local acceptance is key.
That's right. So in the bill it was said that the public purpose must be accepted by locally the people there. Then you won't have a problem, because you'll have to have some communication to them that, you know, this is going to be like this is going to benefit you like this. It is all sort of settled locally. It's not the government telling them, you give the land and we assure you that you will benefit somehow.
No, Mr. Maira, I agree with you. But suppose there is a situation like it was in Singur. I was there in Singur. 90 out of 100 agreed and 10 did not. Or say 95 agree and 5 do not, you know. Then what do you do? In fact, the Bengal Chief Minister told us that the key lesson that he had learned from Singur was that you have to get acceptance of 100 out of 100.
No, I don't.
Even 95 is not enough. You know?
Exactly, 100. But I'd say this. Communities also know, they also understand that, you know, some fellow can be a holdout in depriving everybody else of the benefit, right? So if you have a process which they say at least the 95% have been consulted and have agreed, directly consulted and agreed, and then they can be saying to the others, well, since you are being obdurate, we are calling the government. After the government has this residual role in any society, you know, to make sure that the few who are coming in the way of the many, you are there for that, right? So it's not that the many you are imposing yourself on. So we got to get this process going. After land acquisition happens in the US, it happens in Germany, Japan. There's scarce land countries, those two at least, the last two. But they've got it. This is what we learned there. That the local community's acceptance.
So this is a learning for Planning Commission from experience in the States.
And therefore we want to get, and we've learned this in the manufacturing arena, that how come Germany and Japan, which have very high wages, very heavy exchange rates, have larger manufacturing sectors than we have in India, more employment in manufacturing in the economy than we, underdeveloped country. We found that those two countries have very strong consensus building abilities, if you know, in manufacturing, right? The unions and the employers, and also now the environmentalists in Germany, it's mandated by law that they shall consult, and it shall not be moved to action by the executive until that consultation is done. So we have to install processes for doing this. And in India, because we are a democracy, because now the media is so loud, unless people see it's fair, the state is going to be unable to impose things on people, which is why, like the Chief Minister said.
So you feel that the current contentious politics that we are seeing, fractious politics, is because we have not been able to build this collaborative system, or are you optimistic that it is moving towards or building towards that collaborative system, and as we succeed in doing that, the contentiousness of politics will also reduce?
I think so. There are very good examples we found in our country on, use the example of both labor, which we've talked about, and on the land acquisition, where local communities have got together to say, you know, we need this place to be different. You need jobs, I need a place to stay, and etc. Let us work out our dream of what this place should be like, and in our dream is included no one should feel that they were so badly hurt that they couldn't carry on. So, but let us find a solution. Let us find a solution. So we've got examples like in the heart of Bombay actually, in the C block, which is the most congested area where Kalba Devi is. Quite unlike Dharavi. Someone on the outside is saying this is good for you, give me and I'll house you somewhere. These people together in Kalba Devi have developed a scheme for what their place will look like Singapore, and I've seen the pictures. They've done it together. They've got architects consulted who said it's technically feasible. They've calculated the money. It's financially feasible because of the values of their land, and they have offered to give to the city of Bombay and the state, to give money to the state. We'll do this. Our money will be generated. You make the connection to our place. That's what you do for. On labor, I've sat in the last year in good discussions done in a better way, like this collaborative fashion, between the best unions, the biggest unions of this country in Maharashtra and employers' federations, to say, look, we've got to solve this problem. We can't say, you keep saying you want fairness, they keep saying they want flexibility. Let's get down, what does fairness and flexibility mean to both of you? And you come out, when you have a conversation in that we together want to find a solution which is good for both of us, it works. So to make these skills, to do this is the ways of mass dialogue I was talking about. This must be the way we talk in India with each other, that look, we are in it together, let's find a solution together.
So essentially, what you're saying that we need a politics which generates this mass dialogue towards a collaborative system. Yeah. Good thought, Mr. Maira, and it was good having you on our show. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back again with another episode soon. Thank you. Goodbye.